G'day ladies and gents, and welcome to MagzTV's vlog for the 8th of June 2015. So it's been a little while since I've done one of these, and I do have a few things I want to discuss. I'm going to start off with talking about the house and the move that is coming up, a few changes or a few new things that are going to be added to the channel, and then I'm going to talk about patch 1.49. So first things first, the house, and I spoke about this in my Hurricane video that I did not all that long ago. I have been confirmed for a new place. I will be moving, or starting my move, early to mid next month. I'm unfortunately unable to move in until then. This means the channel will have probably a week or two where it'll go fairly quiet during this move. How long that quietness will be for will depend entirely on how long it takes for me to get my internet transferred over and how soon I can get back to making videos. The upside of this is I am going to have my own studio within this house, so I'm no longer going to be restricted on the time that I can make videos, so as a result I'm going to be able to make more. Now, one of the questions that popped up in that is, am I going to have NBN? For those of you who are not inside of Australia, NBN is a national broadband network. It's a fibre optic network that's being rolled out to replace Australia's ageing copper lines and actually get us into some internet that has comparable speeds to the rest of the world. At this time, the house I'm moving into is not on the NBN network. However, the NBN network is only about half a kilometre away from the house. I'm hoping it'll grow straight through the centre of my area, or the area that I will be moving into. It is a fairly upmarket area, so it's likely those houses are going to be on the short list to be connected. Once it is connected, I'm not entirely sure what speeds will be available. NBN can be a little funny when it's first installed. It takes a little while for the infrastructure to build up around it to get full speeds. I should be able to start at the very least 720p streaming. I'm unsure whether or not I'll be able to put out 1080p. But for the moment, it's not available straight away. It's probably going to be at least 3 more months before it is available in that area. So yeah, no immediate streaming available at the new house, which is unfortunate. But having the new studio means I should be able to increase my video production for the channel up to around 5 or 6 videos a week pretty safely. I might even be able to hit 1 a day. I'm not entirely sure at this point. I'll have to find out once I get there, but it'll definitely be more videos than what you're getting now, comparable to what you've gotten over the last week, actually. So at this time, that's really all there is to report on the house. So what's next? Well, we're going to go over the channel details. Now, I'm going to be restructuring how the channel operates a little bit over the next fortnight or so. Basically, I'm getting ready to start doing some reviews. Now, what I'm going to do at this time for reviews on the channel is I'm going to be reviewing mainly aviation games. I've been going backwards through the Steam logs and the good old games logs, and there is actually quite a collection of some old, often forgotten games, some that are very new in development, some even early access games, dealing around aviation. A lot of them are really arcade based, but some of them look like they're quite a lot of fun. So I'm going to start reviewing these on the channel first and then expand from there. And they're the sort of game that doesn't really get a lot of coverage on YouTube at all by any of the major YouTube parties. So I'll be covering those as a starting point. Basically what I'm going to do is start in an area that I know, and I'm going to expand from there. Once I've gone through the aviation games, I'll probably expand into all, or do a little bit of AAA, a little bit of indie, whatever happens to come along. We'll see how it goes from there, but start in an area that I know and work my way out. I think that's the safest way to go. So what's going to happen to the content that's already there? Well, it's just going to continue through as it is. Exactly the same stuff is going to be coming out, although there are going to be some subtle changes with War Thunder. What I'm going to do with my War Thunder content is I'm actually introducing 2 new series that are going to run inside of my existing War Thunder content. What I currently do, I will still do. This is going to be something a little bit extra. Now, the first one, I released a little bit of a logo screenshot on my Facebook and my Twitter account not that long ago. MagzTV's War Thunder's Clubber's Guide. And yes, it's going to be as horrifying as it sounds. What I'm going to do is pick an aircraft that is almost universally considered to be overpowered or under-tiered, a real SEAL clubbing aircraft. And I'm going to fly it out and club the shit out of people with it. Then what I'm going to do is, at the end and completion of the video, I'm going to give the plane a club ranking between 1 and 5 on exactly how good a clubbing aircraft it is. Sound like fun so far? Well, you're actually going to get involved with it. What I'm going to do at the completion of the video, rather than having my regular outro, I'm actually going to have an end card with 2 screenshots up for 2 different aircraft that are also considered to be clubbers. Now, each of these screenshots are going to be linked through to a straw poll. You are going to click at the completion of the video, that will cast a vote, and whichever aircraft gets the most votes is the next plane that I fly out. Now, the first video, I've picked the 2 aircraft that are going to be on the end card and the aircraft that I'm going to fly out first. However, in that first video when it goes up, which I'm hoping will be before the end of this week, you will get to make a shout out in the comment section on what planes you would like to see on the end card for the next week. So you can think of it as like a running subscriber's choice, however, for stupidly broken planes. Going to get a little bit more interesting though. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to count the aircraft up each week on, you know, which aircraft are going to go on the end. It's not going to be a voting thing. The plane with the most requests is not going to wind up on the end card. The whole idea of this is I want to have a laugh and I want to have a bit of fun making these videos. So when you put in a request in the comment section for a plane that you want to see me fly out, don't just put in the name of a plane. I want a funny or a clever comment to go with it as to why I should put it up. The ones that make me laugh the most, the more the comment makes me laugh, the more likely it is I'm going to select it as the plane that is going to go onto one of the end cards. And you will be credited as the person who put it up there. So it will be on the end card. You'll have, you know, requested by and your YouTube name or your in-game War Thunder name if you want to give it to me, and then the screenshot of the aircraft. So you will be credited at the end of the video if I chose the aircraft based on your comment. So that should be a lot of fun to make and should be a way of varying up my content a little bit. Give it a little bit of something different rather than the style of video that I've been, well, making for almost 2 years now. But that's only one of 2 series that I'm going to start within War Thunder. Now the second one is a little bit more complex. Well, the Clubber's Guide is something that I can potentially put out once a week without too much of an issue at all. This next one, if I get one out once a month, it will be impressive because I can already see the amount of work that it's going to take, but I really want to give it a shot. So, I've been getting a lot of requests over the last 12 months for people wanting me to put their replays on channel. And I haven't wanted to do it so much, not only because I can't actually push out as many videos as I want just on my content so far, but there are other people that, well, other YouTubers that cover other people's replays already, and I didn't want to really cut in on their action by doing pretty much the same thing. I've wanted to try and do something with you guys' replays, but I didn't want to do it that way. So I really needed to think about exactly what to do, and I've come up with an idea. The amount of editing it's going to take is going to be phenomenal, but what I'm going to do is take your replays and use them to create a parody of the TV show Dogfights. And I'm talking a full-blown parody. I'm going to make a parody of the introduction to Dogfights, the ad break in the middle of the show that is always in the middle of the show, including a parody ad, depending on what and who I'm working with at the time, as well as try and get a little bit of try and get some video from maybe some other YouTubers, maybe you guys, maybe the people who send in the videos themselves. Do a little bit of audio interviewing with them and cut it in, like the little sections where they're interviewing the pilot or they're interviewing an expert talking about the replay. I want to try and do the whole thing, but you can see already how much work it's going to take. If I can get one of these out once a month, it'll be impressive. I have no idea how long it will be till I get the next one out. I have, however, already got my first volunteer. I'm going to do the first episode as a little bit of a collab with another YouTuber, so that could be rather fun. So yes, no promises on exactly when this will be out, but I am already in the process of making assets for the series so that I have the drop downs, the arrows to show movement, everything organized. It's going to take me a little bit more time to get everything ready. Once I've got the first episode up, what I'm going to do from then is probably give a new email that will be attached to the end of the episode that you'll be able to send your replays to potentially be selected for the next episode. However, there will be a couple of restrictions on it. I don't just want your replay. If you send it in, I'm going to want a full debriefing on how the mission performed, what you did, what the enemies did. So I have a pinpoint with time links to what happened during the fight, so I can use that to dissect the entire replay and then work out how to turn it into an episode. But yes, do not bother spamming my email with links for replays now. You're going to have to hold on to them until I have my new email organised, which will be solely for accepting replays for this series. I have a lot of hope that it's going to turn out to be pretty good. It's going to be a lot of work. I would really like to get it out before the end of the month, but no promises on even that. There's so many assets that I've got to make. The first episode is going to be the hardest of all. Once I do the second episode, most of the assets will already have been made, so I'm sure you understand. As for everything else on the channel, going to tick through as normal. My new Kerbal Space Program series, the next episode should be ready in the next couple of days, so that will be continuing its once a week release schedule. Now I've gotten everything organised with the actual gameplay itself, so I could bypass the bugs. I actually had the re-entry effect on the ground bug kick in again and got some video recording of it this time. It's actually quite cool. There will be some IL-2 and some DCS both this month as well. I've actually been meaning to put out some IL-2 for about the last 2 months, and I just keep falling behind. I've had replays and recordings set up, and I've just never turned them into videos, so that will be done. I'm hoping to have an IL-2 video out within the next week as well. I'm thinking about taking out the Stromovic itself. DCS World is going to be a little bit longer. I've had a small issue. My actual install has corrupted slightly, and it's causing some really weird effects in game. The control surfaces on certain aircraft just flipping out and putting me into the ground. So I've done some reading, and it looks like I've actually got to uninstall the entirety of DCS and reinstall it in order to be able to play it again and fix the issue. It doesn't seem that using the Steam option to check your install and try and repair it is actually fixing the problem. I've tried it several times and it doesn't seem to be. So that will probably be reinstalled over the next week or so, and hopefully I'll have some DCS up on the channel within about the next 2 weeks. There will also likely be some new Elite Dangerous up on the channel over the next couple of weeks as well. I've been having a lot of fun with the new Power Play expansion. I've just got my new Vulture almost fully kitted out, ready to go. It's not quite at maximum performance, but it is good enough for fighting, and it's an impressive machine to fly. And I'm yet to sign up with any of the powers, so I'll probably do that within the video. Go through and have a look at what they can do, what their bonuses are, and actually sign up and go and have a play around with the actual power play mechanics themselves. Well, that's the move and the channel update done. So what about patch 1.49 itself? Well, this is a tough one. I've been trying to make a patch 1.49 overview video for probably a couple of weeks now, and I keep running into the same problem. There's not really much to talk about. Patch 1.49 makes War Thunder feel like it's in a little bit of a holding pattern. Nothing has really changed. The problems that existed prior to 1.49 are still here. No real new additions have been added in the way of problems, so nothing has gotten measurably worse. It's had a couple of controversies, the Sherman Calliope being the main one, a tank that was not available for testing on the test server, was entered into the game as a premium with a rather extreme cost of around about $50, and had the capability of destroying a mouse in 2 hits, despite only being Error 2. This was outright the biggest example of pay to win we have ever seen Gaijin pull in War Thunder, ever. Actually, I should be more clear on that one, because this is probably the only true example of pay to win that I've ever seen Gaijin pull. And it was just a huge one, which is what made it so shocking. And yet, I almost never see Sherman Calliopes in matches. It seems the community has spoken, regardless of how broken or stupidly OP they are. Nobody is willing to spend $50 on an Error 2 tank that is only really efficient at researching Error 3 tanks. Or at least the majority of the community seems to be unwilling to do so. Those few people that I personally know who did purchase the Sherman Calliope have been suffering quite a lot of buyer's remorse, to the point where they don't really drive their $50 tank anymore. One of the big issues of the test server, the insanely powerful shells on the SU-12254, was corrected before the patch went live, and some adjustments were also made to the M103 shell, so that neutralised that before the patch was ever released. Overall, for aircraft release, we've had some good ones and we've had some bad ones. The Attacker at the end of the Fleet Air Arm line was pleasantly good to fly. I really wasn't expecting much out of that aircraft, and it turned out to be probably one of my favourite aircraft of this patch so far. It's really good and actually feels very balanced where it sits. It's faster than everything that fights, but it doesn't have the turning capability to fight with a lot of what it has. It has air brakes, but it doesn't have ridiculously huge amounts of speed control, as the air brakes are really tiny. This gives the planes that it's fighting against, aircraft like the MiG-9 and the 262, and especially the Horton 229, quite a number of advantages if the pilots know how to fly them, and some of the best battles that I've had in jets this patch have been in the Attacker or against the Attacker. The Arado 234C3 has also been pleasantly good. I would actually, and I never thought I would say this, put the Arado C3 and Arado down as possibly one of the best entry-level jets in the game. I can't fully give it that title because you have to grind through the first unarmed Arado in order to get access to it, but if you're looking for a new jet aircraft that's a bit of fun and can earn you some reliable RP, this one is actually going to be quite a nice one to fly. It's a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to putting that one up on the channel soon. And then there's the other end of the scale, the bad flight models. The two that mainly come to mind is the 109B and the P-51A. Both aircraft, well, honestly, their performance, their flight model itself isn't actually that bad. They're quite nice to fly. The issue comes down to the thermodynamics and the way the engine overheating operates. These planes kill themselves even on snow maps in under 10 minutes, unless you fly them at throttle levels below 85%. And flying them at below 85%, they actually underperform any aircraft that they can potentially face, including aircraft that come before them that they actually can't see in battle, aircraft that have low enough battle ratings that they can't fight the P-51s. A perfect example of this would be the P-51A versus the P-40. The P-51A, if you could run it at 100% throttle, is unarguably a better aircraft than the P-40 is. It's a little bit faster, it's got a little bit better climb rate, it has a much better armament, and it's a pretty good turning aircraft as well. But because you can only run it at 85%, which destroys its energy retention and its top speeds, the P-40 actually outperforms it in every single category, and those 650 caliber machine guns are far more effective simply because it's actually capable of getting to a target to shoot them. The other aircraft, the 109B, exactly the same problem. Now, when it's at 100% throttle, it's actually not a bad little aircraft. It's only armed with a couple of 30 caliber machine guns, but it's quite fun to fly. Excellent aircraft, but again, you can't really run it above 85% throttle. Not only will the 109B overheat on a snow map, if you run it beyond 85% throttle, once it starts overheating and gets into the red, the engine actually won't cool down. Now this may have been patched out since then, but this is definitely the case of what it was when it was first entered into the game at the start of patch 1.49. So if you ever overheated your engine, which you could do within 2 minutes, the aircraft would last for about 6 to 8, but you could overheat it within just 2 minutes without WEP. Once it started, you couldn't cool it down. Even turning off the engine would not save the engine. It would still explode. So you had 6 minutes to get kills, and then you're out of the match. Everything else that was added into the game is honestly a bit meh. The Spitfires that were added are pretty much middle of the ground. They're exactly the same Spitfires as what you've already been flying. There's a few unique quirks about them, but there's absolutely nothing special about them. The Hurricanes are just Hurricanes. The one with the cannons is very cool. The 1C is quite a lot of fun to fly. But it's still just a Hurricane and comes with the problems that a Hurricane does. It really has trouble intercepting targets. You've got to put it somewhere and wait for the enemy to come to you. Great fun, but pain in the ass if you get on Norway. It really is. The Sea Fury is another one. Now, this is one that has been very hard to talk about because the Sea Fury is a good aircraft, but it's not a Sea Fury. It's underperforming the Sea Fury in every single category. You got to remember the Sea Fury was an aircraft that was actually developed on the basis of the Tempest 2 and was designed to improve on the Tempest 2 in every way. And historically it did. It was a vastly better aircraft, possibly the best piston fighter ever created. And it underperforms the Tempest 2 completely across the board in War Thunder. Its flight performance is actually more comparable to the Tempest 5. Now, the Tempest 5, again, is a very good plane. So the Sea Fury is a good plane, but it's not a Sea Fury. It's as simple as that. It looks like a Sea Fury, it has the name Sea Fury, but it's not a Sea Fury. Bugs and glitches, well, there has been a massive amount of them in this patch, but there is a massive amount of them in every patch. This one probably had the biggest one with the chat system going down, and that has been partially fixed. I'm still having problems with it. I've already reinstalled the game once to try and correct it, and it hasn't made a difference. It still seems to be a running issue with it. The chat system just sometimes goes down. I have found a way of getting the chat system to kickstart, but it requires me to be on comms with somebody who is in War Thunder, who I can actually coordinate with. I've found that if I get them to try and message me, even if I'm not online, and then I try and message them, it can usually jumpstart the system and actually get chat to connect. But that requires me to have somebody that's on comms outside. If nobody happens to be available and the chat system decides it doesn't want to boot up on its own, I still don't have chat now and it still isn't fixed. In-game bugs, there's been a lot of interface bugs that have been floating around this patch as well. Nothing overly game-breaking, mainly stuff on the map menus and in the score chart menus. For example, I've seen people that are flying a aircraft, and then you go into the scoreboard and it says they're flying a different aircraft. I've actually had that happen once to myself. One of the matches that I flew out in the Attacker swore that I was still flying the 109K4. Apparently I was the only one that could actually see that. I was in the Attacker to everybody else, but the K4 was the plane that I flew right before the Attacker, so something glitched in there. On the map screen, the settings for what weapons and armaments are actually loaded on the aircraft. I've flown an aircraft that actually don't have the option of carrying bombs, and it's displayed that I have bombs loaded. A bomb loadout that, again, was related to the previous aircraft. One of my videos I actually caught one where I was using just standard default belts, as it was a new aircraft that I hadn't unlocked omnipurpose belts on, and the display was trying to tell me that I was running omnipurpose belts at a 600 meters convergence rather than running default belts at an 800 meters convergence. Again, none of this is really game breaking, it's just an annoying display bug. What you actually get in game is the options that you had set. It just seems to sometimes pick up, it looks like what it's doing is picking up the stats from the settings that you had on the aircraft you flew in the match previous and displaying them in the match you're currently in. Again, nothing game breaking, just annoying, and stuff that will tend to happen when you don't really have a system to test your patches prior to uploading them live, and have never had a system to test your patches before uploading them live. And this has been a Gaijin thing. There are always all these little bugs and little micro patches that Gaijin needs to do at the release of every major patch, because nothing is ever bug tested correctly, because there is no large scale bug testing for any Gaijin patch and never has been. There also hasn't really been any fixes. Nothing has really changed with the problems that were already in the game. There have been no real changes to the way the matchmaking is operating, so it's still operating the way it was working in previous patches. The BR changes that they have made to planes just prior to 1.49 was, well, let's be honest here, it was a band-aid on a broken leg. A couple of them were good and long overdue, but for the most part, what these BR changes have done have moved the problem from one location to another location and not really addressed the issue at all. So this is why it's been incredibly hard to actually do a review for 1.49. The truth of the matter is that nothing has changed from 1.47. The meta for the game hasn't shifted. While we have some new planes and some new toys to play with, it hasn't changed the in-game meta at all. The bugs that existed prior to 1.49 still exist in-game now. The problems that existed prior to 1.49 still exist now. There is a couple of new bugs. Gaijin has released a bunch of micro patches to fix them up, and I'm sure over probably the next month the rest of these will be squashed out and removed as well. But this is nothing new. This is what happens every single time a patch comes out. It's the only thing that has really changed at all in this entire patch has actually been, once again, bombers. About halfway through this patch, or the time between now and the time of 1.49 patch release, Gaijin seemed to micro-patch the way the bombers were working, and suddenly aircraft like the B-29 became very, very, very popular again and very durable. But nowhere near as durable as they once were. But this has created a bit of an issue of spam, and it's the only real meta that has changed. Bombers have come back in as match-winning aircraft. But once again, this is just a problem that we had prior to 1.47 that was fixed and is now back again. So we're just going in circles at this point. I think what War Thunder really needs at this point is something that really shakes up the gameplay. I think we need some new game modes that we can get involved in. The event system is just not cutting it. Something that really changes the way we are playing the game to drive interest, because adding new vehicles isn't doing it anymore. Adding new vehicles at this point is, well, War Thunder, if you count ground forces vehicles in, we've got to be in excess of 500 playable vehicles at this point in time. We'd have to be approaching somewhere in the vicinity of 500 aircraft on its own. The vehicles that are being added are really only giving us the option of doing exactly what we're doing now with other aircraft, just in a different plane. We're not really doing anything new. I think we need some new game modes. I would like to see, and one that would be fairly easy for Gaijin to introduce, as most of the mechanics are already in place, would be pre-made battles. At the moment we have squadron battles, where if you are in a squadron you can organise a group of 16 players from inside of your squadron and go into a matchmaking queue to take on 16 players from another squadron. Open that up to everybody, so there is a matchmaking queue for just going in with yourself or your 4 people, or you can join a pre-made queue where you would put together a team of 16 players and you'll be queued against a team of 16 players. I think that would give War Thunder something interesting to do, some real team-focused gameplay, but without requiring that everybody be in the same squadron, as a lot of people that I know don't fly with people that are within their own squadron. They fly with people that they like and they know. What I think War Thunder really needs sometime soon, however, would be the mythical World War mode. It was mentioned years ago, and we've heard nothing on it ever since, and we assume the reason that it was put aside is because Gaijin was waiting until they have ground forces and air forces, and possibly naval forces as well, all within the game and operating before they put it in. At this point, that is taking too long. We really need to get at least the air component in the game operating now. War Thunder could really do with some competitive gameplay right now, rather than just the random matchmaking we've been seeing so far, and a territory control orientated game mode working around squadrons trying to take and hold sections of the map, much like World of Tanks' Clan Wars, I think could really be the kick of life that War Thunder needs right now. Anyways, ladies and gents, I'm going to bring this vlog to a close here. As always, click like if you do, subscribe if you want to see more, fly smart, fly safe, and I'll catch you in the skies.